So many times as teachers, we feel really, really overwhelmed. And sometimes one of the causes of that is perfectionism or this need to control everything. And so we're here today to talk about a heart issue that can sometimes be underneath that and how to root that out. Well, welcome back to the Teacher of the Heart podcast, where we tackle teaching challenges from a biblical perspective. Why are we here? Because we don't believe that our spiritual walk and teaching profession should exist in two separate domains. Rather, the hope we have in Christ should change how we approach everything, not just at home, but at school as well. So join us as we explore both the spiritual and practical sides of key teaching challenges, integrating them together so we can succeed at teaching, glorify God, and make a lasting difference in our students' hearts and lives. This episode is brought to you in partnership with the Herzog Foundation. I'm excited today to be joined by Rhapsody Jordan-Parisi. Rhapsody, thank you so much for being with us here today.
Thank you for having me, Linda. I'm excited.
And Rhapsody writes over at Tightrope Teacher. You'll definitely want to check out her website, and we'll link to it in the notes for this episode. And she's also going to be at the Rise Up Summit this year. We actually just recorded an amazing session over there about 4 root causes of overwhelm. So if you aren't signed up for the Rise Up Summit yet, you definitely want to go sign up at riseupchristianeducators.com. But one of the things that came up as we were talking and recording that session was this idea of how overwhelm sometimes starts. There's many root causes for it, but a couple of them are perfectionism and this need to control, which can lead us sometimes to overwork, to micromanage. And we were talking a little bit how underneath that sometimes is this actual lack of trust in God, where we might say we trust God, but we're not applying it to this area of our life. Rhapsody, do you want to share a little bit about this kind of sticky point and what this looks like?
Yeah, I know that because I am a teacher and because I know a lot of teachers and because I talk to a lot of teachers that perfectionism is a hugely common problem
Yes.
amongst teachers, and I think that teachers tend to be organized, and we are the ones running the classroom and we're in charge of it. And so when you are the captain of a ship, you want to make sure that the ship runs smoothly. And so you do have to think about, all of the things and make sure that all the pieces are going to go together. And even when you're planning lessons and planning units. And so there are all of these little pieces that you have to be the manager of. And that's fine. But it gets unhealthy when you set this unrealistic expectation of having to do all of the things perfectly. So just because you have to do all these things doesn't mean that anyone is expecting you to do them perfectly. And that should include yourself. But I think it's so easy to just slide into that and want every little tiny thing to be perfect. And that's just not realistic because we are not perfect and life is not perfect. and
Right.
and it's just not realistic. And so that can become very stressful and very overwhelming if you are holding yourself to this impossibly high bar. And so then that also lends itself to that perfectionism, that need for control also goes hand in hand with micromanaging and feeling like you have to be the one in charge of doing every single little thing and you have to do every single little thing perfect. Of course, you're going to feel overwhelmed if that's your expectation on yourself. And so that I think is really at the root of a lot of issues that teachers have with overwhelm. It's just this impossibly high standard.
Right. And when we have this impossibly high standard, and then we are trying to do all the things, we can't ask anyone for help. We can't let our students do it, or, a paraprofessional do it, or a parent do it because they're not going to do it the way I'm going to do it. Then, yeah, this really feeds in. And sometimes we're even worried about things that aren't even in our control, right? We're like, how are they going to respond? And are the students going to do it this way? And now we take on all of that responsibility too and try to control all of that. And it just gets really, really crazy. And obviously, there's a lot of aspects to letting that go. But one of the pieces that can be really helpful is doing some thought work and some soul work on, am I actually trusting God with this? Yes, I
Yeah.
trust God with that, these kind of bigger things or these other areas of my life. But am I trusting God that He's in control and that He's with me and helping me with my day-to-day teaching and the things that are happening in my classroom?
Yeah, I think that's a really important part of your Christian walk is, everybody has a journey in their Christian walk, and we start out as babies on milk, right? And then we get to the point where we can get solid food, and then we're, biting harder things. And so as you progress on that journey, you, if you really desire to know Christ better and to really invite him into all areas of your life, then there comes several points where you have to really do that and not just talk about it. And you have to, if that's something, if being close to the heart of God is something that you actually sincerely want, then you have to reality check yourself with God and say, am I actually doing that? And am I doing it in all areas of my life? I can go to church on Sunday and I can be around all these churchy people and I can sing all the songs and do all the things. But what does that look like in my daily life? And work is part of your daily life, a big part of it. And so if you're not, you can say, "Oh, I trust you, God," but then when it really comes down to it, do you? Because if you're, this is the part where you really have to be honest, and that can be a scary thing. It can be it can be scary to be honest with yourself, but you have to remind yourself God already knows this anyway, right? So it's really just about you admitting it to yourself and also openly admitting it to him and admitting to him, you know what, God, I actually don't trust you as much as I want to or as much as I think I do. You're not going to hurt God's feelings. That's the, first of all, he already knows it. But the fact that you come to him in humility and say, I recognize how short I am falling in this area. And my heart is that I do desire you and I do desire to actually trust you. And I do desire a deeper, closer walk with you. And I don't know how to do this on myself. I'm so used to not trusting you in this way. I'm used to only trusting in myself. If you're trusting in yourself more than you're trusting in God, you're putting yourself in the place of God, which is a very dangerous place to be. And once you are honest about that, God will help you with the thing. With, you don't know how to get out of it, just ask him and he will show
Mm-hmm.
you and he will reveal that to you, because he's known it all along. He's just been waiting for you to come to him and ask for it. It's not like you're going to surprise him or disappoint him. He already knows. And it's only going to result in good things, right? When you can deepen your walk with God, when you can actually trust him more, even with things that might seem, well, uh, it might seem not spiritual enough to trust him with, this little task at work. But God wants, he created us, he created every part of our lives. He wants all those parts of your life. Nothing is too small to give to him. And it takes such a burden off of you when you say, God, please help me with this, because you weren't designed to carry all that anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know in my own life, this also isn't static, right? It's not like I either trust God or I don't. It's like in any given moment, I can be choosing, yes, I do trust you. I'm bringing that faith into this specific thing, or I can functionally forget about it and be like, oh, I'm acting as if this is all on me. And I know so many times when I find myself getting stressed out about often something specific, or sometimes it's a set of circumstances. I don't know how this is going to work out. I don't know what I'm going to do. If I do this, is it going to, how is this person going to respond, or whatever the situation is? Stopping and saying, okay, wait a second, God, wait a minute. I know that you are in control. I do trust you. I need to apply that trust to this specific situation. I need to recognize, let's say I'm working on a lesson and I don't know how it's going to go. Recognizing, okay, God, I'm doing my best. I'm going to trust you with how this lesson goes. And I know you're going to help me. And if it goes really badly, I'm going to learn from that. And that's okay too. And so I think that it really goes hand in hand. And do you find one of the things I think can kind of go with this is a need to surrender? Because
Mm,
sometimes when we aren't trusting, it's actually that we are really holding on to the way we want it to work. Right?
yeah.
Because trusting God doesn't mean it's
Yeah.
always going to, we can't trust that He's going to work it out the way we want, because He never promised He would, right? He's going to
Yeah.
work it out according to His plan. So sometimes we need to actually recognize, this could go one of two ways. And God, I trust you either way. Like you,
Yes.
I'm gonna trust you no matter what happens. And
Yes.
I'm gonna surrender the results to you. I'm just gonna do what you've called me to do.
Yeah, that's so so true, and he never fails. He always does it, and even I think it's helpful to think back on. We tend to forget so easily, but when you're feeling scared about trusting the outcome of whatever the thing is to God, just remember times in the past where things didn't work out as you expected or hoped that they would, but they probably were even better. Or if it wasn't, if you didn't immediately recognize how it might have been better in the short term, if that thing was far enough in the past, then you can see how, okay, at the time I was really unhappy with that result, but look at what you did over the long term with that, God. Like, I can see what you were trying to teach me through that, or I can see, how you worked that thing that seemed bad. I can see how you worked good out of it. And so if we remind ourselves of just how faithful he is to always do that, it can make letting go of that, it can make surrendering a lot easier when you know how trustworthy he is.
Yes.
Um, because he's done it before. He's the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. He was trustworthy in the past. He's not going to all of a sudden become untrustworthy in the future. It's not going to happen. And so, yeah, that the surrender is it's such a beautiful thing and such a necessary thing, but it's hard.
This episode is brought to you in partnership with the Herzog Foundation. America turns 250 years old next summer, and as we approach this incredible milestone, the Herzog Foundation is launching the Freedom Tour, a national event series celebrating the history and hope of America. It's a powerful reminder that our freedoms, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, aren't government made, they're God given. The Freedom Tour invites you to experience how faith shaped our founding and to carry that message into your classrooms, homes, and communities. But that's not all. Starting this summer, the Herzog Foundation is also releasing a new video series called Faith and Freedom 250. Every Friday, you'll hear voices from across America, teachers, parents, pastors, and leaders sharing powerful stories from our nation's history and reminding us why our founding values still matter today. Learn more and follow along at freedomtour250.com. That's freedomtour250.com. Now, back to the conversation. Yeah. Right. Well, this all goes together with what we're talking, right? Because to surrender the results to God, once again, requires that letting go of control, right? But I think that when we do kind of make that conscious choice, God, I am surrendering this to you, that can also then, back to what we were talking about in the beginning, help us let go then of those little things in relation to it, right? Okay, yes, I am going to let a student help this, and he might not do it exactly the way that I would do it. I'm going to train him, I'm going to teach him, I'm going to do all the things to make this a good delegation. I mean, if I'm having students help me with my library or help set something up or whatever, it doesn't mean you just say, here, do it, and never come back, and it just is crazy. But recognizing it doesn't have to be perfect, right? It can kind of help us let go, and even in some of these little details of recognizing, yeah, it's okay if things don't turn out exactly the way that I wanted. It doesn't have to be exactly perfect, every step of the way.
Yeah, and I think that the first piece to doing that in a concrete way is to define for yourself what is actually in your control and what is not.
Mm,
Because I think that we tend to think that we have control over a lot more things than we actually do. And so then that creates this like illusion that we can control things that we actually can't, and then that just breeds stress and anxiety. So in the realm of talking about what to give over to God, also recognize what was never yours in the first place.
yes.
Like, because that also can help you sort of release the hands to realize, wait a minute, that was never in my hands to begin with. That was an illusion. I wasn't even, that's not even reality. Because when we really come down to it, the only, we don't control how long we live. We don't control when our next breath is. My heart could stop beating right this instant, and I have no control over that. And I think that people can react to that in one of two ways. One is anxiety over not knowing what's going to happen in the future, and the other is oh, thank goodness I don't have to worry about that anymore. And that's where the faith piece is
Yeah.
so crucial to that, because if you can really grab hold of the faith that I don't know whether my heart is going to beat for another moment, but God, I trust you with it either way, like you were saying, that's really where faith is real in every moment of your life. And so recognizing, like, what are the things that you actually control? You control your words, your actions, your thoughts. I mean, sometimes you get intrusive thoughts, but you have the ability to consciously shift those, right? You can control your reactions and emotions. Yes, you might have like a sin nature, fleshly, emotional reaction that comes up to something, but you have the ability to change that, and to shape it into something different, or to choose a holy reaction over a sinful reaction. Like, those are things that you can actually control: your words, actions, thoughts, attitude. um, like you were mentioning a minute ago, you can't control other people's actions. You can't control what this kid does with that library. Like, you can't control their actions. You can't control other people's words, their thoughts, their opinions, their reactions, none of that. um, you can't even really control directly, if we think about it from a teaching perspective. You can deliver a wonderful lesson, but do you directly control how deep that sinks into the memory and the mind of your students? No, you don't. Because you also can't control, are they tuning you out? Are they looking you straight in the face and they look like they're listening, but they're actually totally zoned out? You don't control that. So, giving yourself kind of that reality check of like, here are the things that I actually control, and I'm just going to focus on those. And then the rest, it's not even necessarily, if we change the phrasing, it's not even giving it to God. It's recognizing that it was never yours in the first place. And therefore
Yes.
trusting God that He is far more capable than you will ever be, than I will ever be. And that's okay, because He hasn't put that onto our plate of controlling other people and other people's outcomes. So why would you try and take it? Because that's His.
Yes. Yeah, that's so good. And to give just a specific analogy, I think we talk about this with classroom management, where I think sometimes we get so stressed and overwhelmed. Like, what if the kids misbehave? What if they do these certain things? And honestly, like, we cannot control they could you who knows what they're going to do in the classroom, but we can
Absolutely.
control the systems we set in place, how we respond, how consistent we are, if we're clear in our expectations. So it's like we
Yep.
focus on, what am I going to do to create the classroom, but then I can, like you said, let go, because I can't control it anyhow, of how the students are going to respond. And what we know, and then just, they're going to respond how they're going to respond, and then I'm responsible for how I handle that and what I do with
Exactly.
that. So recognizing I'm called to do my best to respond, like you said, attitude, heart, words, all of that, and trusting God with, God, if you allow this big disturbance to happen in my classroom, then that's what you had for me today. And I'm going to learn through it, and we're going to work. You're going to help me. And that's what's going to be on the plate for today. And just kind of, I think the more that, once again, it's not like a one and done thing. It's like a daily reminder and a choosing to just, God, I'm going to trust you with these things that aren't really mine anyhow. And I think that just gradually lowers that stress and overwhelm
Yes.
in our lives.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for talking about this with us, Rhapsody. I hope you guys listening found this conversation helpful. Obviously, we're just scratching the surface of a really big topic. So, first invitation is to join us at the Rise Up Summit, where we dive deeper into 4 root causes of overwhelm and how to overcome those in your life. Rhapsody, can you also tell people where they can connect with you in the meantime?
Yeah. So my website is tightropeteaching.com. And there's a whole bunch of blog posts there on all different topics for you to explore. And there's also a place on the website to get different free resources. I would really encourage everybody listening, if they're interested in, encouragement and support, just sort of ongoing about the topic of overwhelm and the, day-to-day life that all teachers have to manage, is to sign up for my free weekly newsletter. That's really like a mini blog in itself, and that's really the best way to connect for that ongoing support.
Wonderful. So go check out the website there. And then once again, sign up for the Rise Up Summit at riseupchristianeducators.com. It's completely free to attend the whole weekend of that event. And then one other resource I'll mention, if you are finding in this conversation, you say, okay, I hear you. I recognize the need to trust God, but honestly, I'm struggling with that. Like maybe I have some things I don't know if I can trust God, or maybe I just know I should, but I'm not. And I need to explore that deeper, more deeply. We have a program called Hope Renewed that really helps you dive into this scripture and teaching on how do I actually do that and what does that look like. So you can find out more about that at teachfortheheart.com/hope renewed. This episode was brought to you in partnership with the Herzog Foundation. All views and opinions are our own and don't necessarily reflect those of the Herzog Foundation. Thank you so much. Look forward to being with you again soon. In the meantime, teachers, remember, God is at work in you and through you, and he's using you to make a difference. Keep your eyes on him and teach for the heart.